Congratulations! You made it to week 10. I'm happy to be in week 10, and I'm sure all of you are too. After this week, you'll obviously be finished with this course. I'm really proud of the work that you've done. I hope that you feel proud of these final projects that you're submitting at the end of this work, or this week, and that this is a celebration of all the hard work of this quarter. I think it's fun for me, and I hope it's fun for you to see all this stuff come together. Today, I just wanted to share with you some tips for succeeding in the final project. Some students, I think in week 10, are just stressed out, so it helps just to kind of go over the requirements and talk a little bit about what I'm expecting and what the project guidelines are actually asking you to do. So I want to talk about how we can justify our work. You can justify your work. We can integrate our memo so that it's not so choppy. And lastly, how you can use illustrations from your work to justify your ideas. So just to begin, what you'll be submitting for the final project are a revised version of each of the 3 milestones. You can submit them individually, you can submit them on a website, you can submit them in a PowerPoint, whatever is going to be easiest for you. I really don't care about the formatting, just as long as you're sure I can access it and that it compiles everything together. So that's up to you. So you'll take the advice I gave you in the feedback rubric for each milestone and hopefully address those things. I also want you to keep in mind that those are not the only things you might need to address. For example, when you did the milestone, we hadn't yet talked about color theory. So now that we have talked about color theory and you have that under your belt, please feel free to go back and reintegrate that into your infographic, even if I didn't comment on it. So this should really be a compilation of all the things that we've learned this quarter. And every week, honestly, even though we're talking about different topics, there's probably something you can take back and apply to the infographic. So please just keep that in mind. This is really an integrative, collaborative final project, and I'll be looking to see how you've put all these pieces together. Okay, so then the next piece that you'll submit is the memo. So you have the 3 revised milestones and then also this new memo that you're writing. Please follow your typical memo format. The only thing that you'll want to add are citations, of course. Typically memos don't have citations, but you will want to have citations and a reference page that follow APA format. So those are just a few things to keep in mind. On the point of citations, I just want to remind you that citations are really important. They provide a foundation that links you into this larger conversation about best practices in design. It's much better to have that support of a citation than to just say, I've done this and it works, right? I've done this and it works because here's the evidence from the citation is a much more solid way to justify your work. So please be sure that the work in the memo is heavily cited with the resources that you've used this quarter. So the memo has a page limit. I'll have to double check. I think it's 3 to 4 pages. I'll post it in the email when I send this out. So it's relatively short given the amount of information that you're going to cover. And I know that typically, and it's easier when students submit this, they want to have like each section. They'll have a section on the ethics and the communication theory for the infographic. Then they'll have a section on the same things for the presentation and the video script. Your memo gets really long fast that way. So I encourage you to please integrate your memo. Likely, you're using a lot of the same principles in each of the milestones that you've revised for this final project. So talk about them together. Say, if you're doing the Apple recall, for example, I was ethical in presenting this Apple recall information for Del Monte because I didn't incite panic in any of my milestones. So then you can offer an example from each milestone on how you didn't incite panic. I chose to focus on how the recall was voluntary. I chose to focus on how the recall hadn't actually impacted anyone yet. No one had been diagnosed with the bacteria listeriosis. So you can use illustrations like that. Just make sure you're being specific about how you've done this in each PowerPoint medium, because an infographic is very different than a presentation, as you guys have learned this quarter. So I don't need to rehash all of that. Good. So make sure you integrate it. A conclusion and an introduction are really important. They don't have to be super long, just something to orient your reader. I think it's really great if you can also find the name of someone in the organization that you might actually be writing the memo to. Perhaps you're writing it to the marketing team because you've been hired as the contracted designer or something like that. So you can be creative there, but be as specific and as real as possible. Okay, so we've covered citations, we've covered integrating your memo to make it a little bit tighter and compact. And then lastly, I want to just talk about what justifying your work actually means. So obviously citations are a really big part of that. But when you're using citations, you also need to reference the work that you've done with examples. So just saying that a best practice is to do more showing than telling. I have done that, right? That's not enough. You have to illustrate to me, to tell me how you've done that. I have done that by including 5 pictures on my slide deck or whatever that help tell the story of Apple. I've done this, or yeah, Apple, sure, Apple. Some of you are doing an Apple, maybe that was last quarter. I can't remember. An Apple or iPhone recall or something. So whatever your topic is, just make sure that you're referencing your specific press release, the content, and then the content of your design choices. Because really what I want to get at, I want to see that you can tell me what your choice is and then offer support for why you've made it. So ideally in the topic sentences of your paragraphs in your memo, you will make a claim about something you've done and then illustrate to me how you've achieved this. And that's probably the easiest, fastest, most effective way to justify your ideas. Again, citations play a large role in this, and then the evidence. And additionally, if you're in the workplace and you have the opportunity to use focus groups or task force or have access to a sample of the audience and can get their response, those types of things are even more powerful in demonstrating why your work is good and why it will make a difference for an organization. So keep those things in mind as you proceed towards the final project. You guys have come so far. I really hope that it's a joy to see these things come together. I'm really looking forward to see what you are going to submit. And as always, I'm here if you need me. In the final hour, I'll answer emails. I'll make myself available to you guys. Happy to have a phone conversation, whatever suits you best. So take care. I've really enjoyed this quarter with you, and I look forward to seeing your final projects. Bye for now.